You are tuned in to the Morning Mix. I'm here with Adrienne Lauby, and it is an honor. We have with us two lifelong activists, grandmothers, living legends, Carrie Dann and Dolores Huerta, with us on the lines. Carrie Dann is a Nui elder, a Shoshone grandmother. She's a lifelong activist in the struggle for sovereignty and the recognition of the Shoshone Nation. She's battled against multinational mining corporations, the nuclear industry, and the U.S. government. We also are joined on the line with Dolores Huerta. She's the grandmother of the Chicana movement, president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation, on the board for Miss Magazine, and co-founder of the United Farm Workers. Welcome to the Morning Mix, Dolores and Carrie.
Happy International Women's Day to you, too.
It is an honor. Carrie, do we have you on the line as well?
Yes, you do.
Welcome. Dolores Huerta, let's start with you. Today is the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day. What is your message to women in California and around the world?
I think we have to continue organizing. We know we still have a very long way to go on this journey for women's equality, for women to be decision makers, to get the gender balance that we need, to bring peace and prosperity to this world, which ultimately will only be done when women take power.
And Carrie Dann, let's bring you into the conversation. You are on the forefront of the struggle for Indigenous rights. Tell us a little bit of your story. Tell us about when you first took on the U.S. government, the time when you and your sister were actually sued by the U.S. government for your cattle allegedly trespassing.
Well, I've heard about, the Western Shoshone struggles all my life. And actually, I guess I've been in that movement since I can remember, but it all really started after, I finished high school. I became more active. I traveled with my auntie, and, she knew she was in the struggle, so, I was her driver, and I got to hear a lot and learned a lot.
And what was one of the key things that really got you active? And I know that a lot of your activism has been through the court systems.
Well, basically, it's a struggle for the land. Western Shoshone people, the people before us, they signed a treaty of peace and friendship with the United States, and in which the Shoshone people did not give an inch of their land to the United States. They gave them a right-of-way to pass through, but that was all. And, like I say, I had family that was really interested in what's going on, and they were kind of historians as far as I know, because, we have undocumented history, and it was passed from word of mouth to the next generation. And that's how I got started. I grew up with it.
And Dolores Huerta, how did you get started in the movement for social justice? And along your journey, why have you kept the struggle for women's equality at the center of your work?
Well, I actually started in Stockton, California, organizing primarily with a civic action organization called the Community Service Organization, which was started by a great man named Fred Roth Sr., and we started mostly there with farm workers and seeing the kind of oppressive conditions that they were working under. Then from there, that's where I met Cesar Chavez, and then we went on to form the United Farm Workers Union of America. And one of the things that I really saw is that, or learned, I should say, is that we can make changes, but that people have to organize, they have to work together. They have to learn how to work together to make these changes and take responsibility. And people don't realize the power that they have. And once I understood that and I could share that and be able to convince people that they have power, but that they have to take responsibility, then we could see that all types of changes could be made. And when I say this, I think it's even harder sometimes with women, because women are so oppressed that they don't realize that they have power. We have been so ingrained that we are the support system for men, that we just have to help them achieve, never thinking about the women also have responsibility to achieve. And so these are all life's lessons that I've learned, and I continue to try to share these lessons with other people, because once it's almost like finding some kind of a magic formula, you might say, and you know that it works, and so you want to share it with as many people as possible. And then when you see people that become active, and I'm sure everybody knows this, but then you can see people blossom, they become leaders, and it transforms. And when women transform, of course, they transform their families, they transform their neighborhoods, they transform their community, and ultimately that's the way we can transform the world.
And when you look, Dolores, at the different women and role models you've had as an organizer, was there a specific time or person that really resonated with you in terms of exemplifying the power and the ability to change and hold that transformation?
Well, I've had, I guess, many mentors. Of course, I mentioned Fred Ross Sr., who was the first person I met who didn't have a sexist bone in his body. And, of course, Cesar Chavez. Many in the women's movement, knowing people like Gloria Steinem, Eleanor Smeal, who's the head of the feminist majority, so many other great leaders. And when you see them, and then you want to, follow in their footsteps, knowing that courageous women, even people like Jane Fonda, they're courageous women that are willing to go out there and take the criticism, that comes when you take any kind of a leadership. People are going to criticize you, and they're going to make fun of you. And when you see these women that are great role models, and you see that they've been ridiculed, and yet they continue to work and to continue to champion the women's movement. That's the kind of inspiration I think that we need.
And Carrie Dann, as an Indigenous woman, what do you keep at the center as you continue the battle for sovereignty and for the land of the Niue people?
Well, you know one thing, I guess our spirituality, our religion, our culture is all tied to the land. And because our belief tells us that one of the most sacred things is land, or the earth. Let's just say the earth, not just the land, but the earth. And the things upon the earth, there's more sacred things, which is earth, the water, the air, and the sun. Those, to us, we grew up learning that these are the things that human beings or other life cannot exist without. And so I can't say, people will say, that we are worshipers of the sun. I've heard that so many times when I was in, public school, and that isn't so. It is a sacred thing. The sun is sacred. Life cannot exist without it. And so, we, as we were growing, we learned all of these things from the elders that were around. And, today it is true. Life cannot exist without the earth. And yet today, what do you see? You see all the destruction that is going on. And a lot of this destruction is pointed to the land, the earth, and it is very hurtful, because it's, we call it our mother, because everything springs from this earth. The plant life, all life comes from this earth, so it is very sacred to us. And, you cannot do away with the sacredness of anything. You have to keep it intact, and remember all these things, they have a spirit, and the spirit is what keeps us all alive.
We have with us on the line today on International Women's Day, Carrie Dann and Dolores Huerta. And Carrie, on the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day, what is your message to women around the world?
Well, in Indigenous life, women plays a very important role, and it kind of hurts me to see, women have, won a lot of rights, but they have to fight for it and stand up for it. But in Indigenous society, women, I guess you can call them the boss or whatever, they give their instructions to the men as to many of the things that they have to do. And, we've always had an important role in the life of our people. We learned as youngsters that women is like the earth. We bring forth life. So therefore, you have to accept your role and be be very strong about it. If you're not, you're going to get walked over, and, men's going to take over everything, and it's not the way it's supposed to be. Women have a very important role. They are the givers of life. And so what I can say to the women everywhere in the world is that be proud of who you are and stick up for life, because you are life givers.
And we're talking with Carrie Dann, elder from the Niue Shoshone grandmother. We also have with us on the line Dolores Huerta. And Dolores, what do you see as the most important issue facing women today?
Well, I think that we have a kind of a great challenge. We see that because of the women's movement, the conservatives, the right-wingers are promoting a lot of women candidates, say, to run for office. The Sarah Palins of the world, the Ingalls woman, and this Michelle Bachmann. And you see all of these women that are not, they don't have women's values. They're not pro-choice, They're right-to-lifers. They're conservative. But yet we see that they're winning a lot of the elections, so to speak. And well, may say, okay, so then we have women political representation, but these are women that do not have the values. Sarah Martinez, the new Latina governor of New Mexico. And sure, we want to have gender balance, definitely, but we want to have feminists that are elected, feminists that really have women's values, right? And when I mean feminist values, that we want women to be not only in political representation, but we want them to stand there for labor unions, to stand there for the environment, everything that has just been said. So we've got to be careful about this, which means that we have a particular challenge that we've got to then say, okay, we're now going to kind of distinguish ourselves from these other conservative right-wing folks by using the word feminist. I think we can't run away from that word. We've got to make that word very strong. We know for feminist, it's somebody who stands up for organized labor, stands up for teachers, as I said, the environment, for labor unions, for immigrants, for equality rights, for equality marriage, for LGBT folks. So, our voices as feminists have got to become a lot louder because they have access to more access to the media than we do, then those are the voices that are being heard right now, and it is contaminating, I believe, the minds of many, many other women, that is going to put them back, actually, set them back, because we know that unless women really know that they have control of their reproductive bodies, that women are never going to really be free.
And Dolores Huerta, when you're talking about feminism, one of the ideals that is inherent is this concept of equality. And this is a word that I want to chase through the hour, equality. Some of the battles of the feminist movement have been equality in the workplace, equality to serve in the military. But in terms of my generation, one of the big questions I have is then what we're given is this concept of, all right, we're going to be equal workers in the workplace. We're going to come home and be the caregivers of the children, take care of the house, and also the extended family, holding that all into place. So talk to me a little bit about your vision for equality in this time and place. What does that look like for women? What is this? How can we have equality but also honor our distinct differences?
Well, I think when we talk about equality, you talk about what's going on in the home. I think that we need to extend an invitation to men to be able to learn the arts of homemaking, and arts of cooking. I have a son who's a chef, and the way that we raise our children to make them understand that women are not an inferior creatures, that we are equal to men. And so it also means by bringing men up to another level also, and being able to change the way that they think, their mindset. And for women, I always like to say this, that they did a survey in one of the East Coast colleges. I can't remember whether it was Harvard or Yale, but anyway, they asked the male students how many of them thought they were qualified to be president, and 85% of the men said yes. when they asked the women, only 30% of the women said yes. And these are women students that are in these Ivy League colleges. So, women still have a very low self-esteem, or they somehow think that they can't step up to the plate and be the decision makers. And that's the type of equality that I'm talking about. I'm talking about political equality. In terms of what you mentioned, and I know that there's some controversy about women serving in the armed forces, women to go into battle, et cetera. But the thing is that I believe that the controversy there rests on the women that are deprived of being able to go up the scale in terms of leadership in the armed services, of being the generals and having that same access to power and decision making and prestige that men have. So I think what the word equality is thrown around a lot, and maybe in some respects a lot of women can't be as physically strong as men, but then we are definitely they're intellectual equals, right? At the same time, there's a lot of attributes that women have that men don't have, that men can also learn from women. We're much better negotiators. We have a lot much more patience. I think we have a great perception to see things often that the men can't see. So we have a lot to share with each other, both men and women. And being a feminist, doesn't mean that you're putting men down. It doesn't mean that we're saying, women are better than men, but we're saying, okay, we are equal to men.
We're talking with Dolores Huerta, and we also have with us on the line Carrie Dann. Carrie, the Western Shoshone land is some of the most brutally bombed land on Earth. There's been over 900 nuclear tests detonated on it. In our last few minutes, tell us about this critical time for Mother Earth right now, and do we as women have a special role to play?
I think we do, because in our teachings we learned that a woman's body is created after the earth, because we're the only women can bring forth life, and the earth is a female, so she can only bring forth life of all sorts, and everything that's living is her children. And when we look at things on those things, and you talk about the nuclear testing, I don't know who gave the idea that, nuclear testing ought to be done on the earth and above and below ground. There's contamination that goes on. We talk about things today, the contamination, the nuclear contamination, and all of these things. And here in the little town that, where we have our office, we have many people, when they die, they either have cancer or died from cancer. And we're also known as the upwind people. So you know that somewhere along the way that we are affected by the nuclear testing. We've been, our family has been in livestock business for years. It was not until in the 1950s that we saw cows with cancer, mostly in their eyes, and later on into the 70s, we saw deformities, which I had never seen before in babies that were born. And I do believe that nuclear testing has a lot to do with it. And, nuclear testing does destroy the earth. And we also have another thing today, which, in my opinion, is destroying the earth, and that is the mining companies, the gold mining companies. They come in here, they pump water out so that they can get to the gold, and when they pump that water, they're taking life away from the future generations, because if they pump all this water, where's this water going to come from? And when you look at all of these things and you put them together and you think, what in the world is going on? Where are people going? What is their mission? Where are they going? Are they really, is their mission, is it to destroy the earth as we know it today? Or is it, to take care of it like we're supposed to? And, so that our future generations can come and, take over the role that we have now. We have a lot of responsibility as women. We show our children how to live. We tell our children about the difference between men and women, and we also tell them the fact is that either sex, male or female, cannot exist on this earth. They have to be two. You have to have the opposites. And so, when you look at all of these things and you put these together and you think, my gosh, I often wondered, if the decisions I make is going to affect who is it going to affect? And, it's all children, regardless of their color, regardless of, where they're from. We have to look out for the rights of the generation that is not born yet.
Thank you.
And we say these children are of the earth, yet they haven't come from the earth. Everything comes from the earth. Even, people may not think so, but I believe that is true. For me, it is anyway.
These are words of wisdom from Grandmother Carrie Dann of the Western Shoshone Nation and Dolores Huerta also on the line. Thank you, women, so much for being with us today on International Women's Day. It is an honor to be with you. Your wisdom, dedication, and teaching has taught us all so much. Contact information really quickly.
Dolores Huerta Foundation, and we're located in Bakersfield. We're on the web, www.doloreshuerta.org.
Thank you. And Carrie Dann, people can reach you at Western Shoshone Defense Project. That's WSDP.org. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for having us.